Good morning, SML, and happy Halloween. We're back. It's been such a long time. I don't know. It's been probably close to 2 years at this point. But that that record-breaking podcast really took it out of us. But we are finally back. It's Eminem in the morning. I'm Meats. I'm joined by, of course, Matt. What's going on, Matt?
Yeah, happy Halloween, everyone. I think actually everybody just finally got a chance to spend the time to listen to that last podcast. I think it just ended, so here we are.
Yeah, it's like a first pitch that just floats up in the sky and never comes down.
Right.
Yeah, but so today's Halloween, and we are doing our Halloween episode, which I think was our first episode ever. So it's only fitting that it's our return here in, I guess you would call it, the second season or the second iteration of Eminem in the Morning. So we're gonna try to keep it a little bit shorter for you this time around. So let's just get into it. We got a couple Halloween themed segments. And first, we're going to start with our superlatives. Moving forward, we're going to try to get some recurring segments going. And I think superlatives might be one of them, maybe with different themes. We'll just see how it goes, and we'll hash it out, as we get there. But it's Halloween superlatives, this one, and we are doing SML members and the candy bars that best represent them. And I think this will be a lot of fun. So I'll start. And I'm going to go for the big guy right away. Clink. I think Clink is Hershey's Cookies and Cream Chocolate Bar. And, all right, a little bit weird right off the bat, right? But I'll give it to you. Extremely underrated. And it might be the best, might be the best candy out there. It's my favorite. And I think that fits Clink because Clink is playing so well. Never mind week one, he lost to QP, but since week one, he's gone 10-1, and his one loss was 1 point. Oh, and he just beat QP again in the last week, and he's got a win over
Yeah,
Dan.
that's a good one. I don't really think about that candy bar that often, but it is a good one. I think that's where Clink is, right? We talk about the AFC, we talk about Prime, we talk about Dan, we talk about QP. We forget about Clink, so I think that's a really good comparison there.
He's playing out of his mind this season, and Neon is still broken, so I can't look at his record from last year. But I remember it being pretty good, not as good as it is this year. But he's just, I mean, he's putting up so many points: 42, 52, 45, 42. It's, I mean, yeah, maybe his schedule could be a little tougher, but in that win streak that he just had of 9 games, that actually just recently came to an end, he beat Straw, he beat Dan, he beat Doink, all of which are playoff contenders at bare minimum, and then he's got some other good wins in there. He dominated Dump, who is probably going to make the playoffs this year, I'd imagine, and let's see, Saints. That's Saddam. He beat him by 10 plus points. He might be the best player in the league this season.
Yeah, that's a great team. I mean, I think it's easy to forget. I'm pretty sure he Prime beat him by a field goal in the playoffs last season, and Clink just didn't call a timeout to ice him. If he calls this timeout there, he could have been the representative in the Super Bowl. So I think that's easy to forget.
All right, why don't you give me one?
Yeah, so for me, this will actually be my only candy bar on the list. I went with candy, and I've actually never had this candy bar, but the name and the way they advertise, I mean, it just 100 grand. It's QP. The guy looks like 100 grand. He plays Madden like 100 grand. He makes you feel like you need to pay 100 grand to watch his games. I mean, he comes on with the Hugh Hefner robe, one of the first times we ever see him, the slick back hair, the beard, the chains. I mean, the guy plays the part. It's almost like he's playing a character, but the character is himself. And I mean, doesn't matter. Lions, Chargers, Cardinals, whatever team QP has, he plays the game well. He's always a force. The roster doesn't really matter. The roster only makes him stronger the better it is. He just reminds me of 100 grand.
Did you say you've never had a 100 grand bar?
I've never had one.
It is actually like surprisingly good, and I think that fits QP. So it's like crunchy and caramelly, right? It's like basically just caramel covered in like a Nestle Crunch bar, um, and it's like you don't look at it and be like, huh, I bet that's really good. But I was actually really surprised at how much I liked QP. We met at the meetup, um, and he's just a super cool dude. So I think that fits that one very well. Um, all right, my next one. We'll stay on the AFC side. I got Dan He 22. I now this is not a candy bar, so we're just going with candy. Um, I had him as a jawbreaker, and I'll tell you why. Because you don't really want to get one for Halloween, but when you do, they might crack your teeth, and you'll probably regret eating it. And I think that fits Dan really well because you see him on your schedule, you don't want him on your schedule. Again, I mean, he's playing out of his mind right now. He's 11-2. Yeah, 11-2. His only two losses were first two games of the season. One of them, which was to Clink, and Dump was the other. So two quality losses, and he's won 11 straight games since. He will crack your teeth if you try him.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was a kid, we had a pizza place that had jawbreakers, and they were huge. Like they were the size of like a golf ball. Actually, a little bit bigger than a golf ball. And I don't know if that's how all jawbreakers are, but it took you forever to eat them. I was actually going to say KJ was a jawbreaker because it takes him so long to pick a play. But I like that one. Dan's not overly flashy, kind of like a jawbreaker. It's not like you don't really think about that candy. You don't really, it's not the flashy all advertised candy, but you see it and you're like, ah, man, not that. And that's Dan. It's like he's not gonna just absolutely wow you with his Madden ability, but he's consistently good at something. And this year it's defense and it's controlling the ball and not turning it over. He's passing better than he has before with the rookie. But when I played him, he didn't even pass. He just ran the ball down my throat and I couldn't stop him. And it's extremely frustrating because he's very, very good. He figures out what he's good at and he just gets even. He figures out what's good and he gets really good at it. So that's a good one. My second one, when I was a kid, middle school, I was in like a social studies class and we bought Pop Rocks one time. Like me and my close group of buddies. I don't know if you remember these, but I don't know if they still make them. But you put them in your mouth and they start to pop. And if you open your mouth, they make a bunch of noise. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of
Pop
course.
Rocks?
Those were awesome.
Okay.
And then if you swallowed soda while you were eating them, you might explode.
Oh, okay, didn't know that, but they make a lot of noise. So one time we had a movie with one of our, I lived in a small town, so everybody, my teachers knew my parents, we all knew everybody, so it was never anything malicious. But my buddies and I, we all got Pop Rocks, and when the movie came on, it was all dark and quiet. We were all watching the movie. We all put the Pop Rocks in, we all opened our mouth. It was really loud. Teacher got all mad. Blah blah. We got kicked out. Blah blah blah. Well, I'm trying to think. Who do you think in this league makes a lot of noise? And that would be Tiny Titan. He is always the life of the chat, good or bad. And he just makes a whole lot of noise, whether it's about Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis or himself or NASCAR or baseball, whatever it is, or you or the rest of the division. He's always making a lot of noise.
Yeah, it's funny. So for those of you listening, we didn't discuss this ahead of time. I also had included Tiny in my list, and I'll just go right into it. I had him as mounds, which I don't know if you've ever had. I think I had about one time, and I probably spit out. Because it looks good. It's chocolate covered, right? It looks good. It's actually terrible. And you regret ever thinking it was good. And it makes you regret it every single time. And that's pretty much every interaction with Tiny on and off the field.
Yeah, I have had those, and I think I also spit it out. But I will say, for those of you, probably the other 30, 29 of you, 28 of you, I haven't done the math, that Tiny drives you nuts. He is a good guy in person, but he reminds me of Pop Rocks.
Yeah, I'm just playing with him. I do. Anyway, moving on. My last one, I'll just go right into it. And this is, I'm just going to hit the nail on the head on this one because this was like the easiest one for me to think of. Double rice, no beans. He is double rice, all nerds. You ever had nerds, right?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, well, obviously, he's a nerd. So, But beyond that, he does these really giant spreadsheets to make him further into a nerd. And he's a little bit fruity.
Oh.
That's all I got.
Okay, well, the nerd part, I mean, the Duck King spreadsheet is one of the best presentations in the league, in my opinion. I think it's they do their research, him and Doink. Yeah, that's nerd 101, right? I think those guys are both engineers or some in that field of some sort. So they are just nerds to the core, and it really shows in especially in those spreadsheets.
I like nerds too, so it's fine. That's fine by me.
Me too. That's in my Halloween basket, I'm okay with that. My last one, I mean, it's Prime, and it's just your basic M&Ms, right? I mean, you go to the store, you got all these candy options these days. There's just so many of them. I bought a Payday at the gas station a while back, and I couldn't believe how much candy there was. There's just all kinds of different types. But if I want consistency on a road trip or something, just a candy I know is just going to hit the spot, it's M&M's, and that's Prime. He does the same thing every single year, and it's still good. He runs cover 2. Everybody knows when they play Prime, it's cover 2. Watch his games. He plays more cover 2 than anyone in this league, and he's done it since the day I walked into the SML. And guess what? He has 3 of the top 5 interception leaders in the league. And you know he's going to run off of JT. You know he's going to throw to his tight end. He's going to try some shots. He's going to roll out a little bit with AR. But even when he doesn't have those guys, it's the same principle. It's tight end. It's the underneath stuff. It's the play action in the run game and cover 2. But it works. No need to change it, just like M&M's. They've probably been the same since 1945 or whenever they came out to today. They're the exact same because the system works.
And these M&Ms have been the same since 2021 or something like that. You know, I like that. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Prime's just it's a really good candy. It's a go-to. It's a consistent candy. I like that. I think that fits perfectly.
Yeah, and he's got other variations. If he wants to be the peanut butter or the peanut versus, in a regular season game where he wants to screw around and give the fans a show, he'll do that. But crunch time, he is the plain old M&Ms, goes back to the basics, and it works for him. He's always in the midst of another title.
All right, let's pivot now. Let's talk about what scares you in regards to the SML.
Well, I've kind of got 2 things. I've got a now and I've got a later. I can hit you with both of them.
Sure.
The now, I guess I looked at it as, actually playing the game, and that is playing defense. I don't know what I'm doing out there. I might as well just have my monitor off and let the computer do it, because no matter what I call, man, zone, blitz, it doesn't matter. Somebody's open, the running back's behind me, whatever. That's my biggest fear. As far as the long term, and maybe this is a bit more of a serious discussion, as far as the league goes, is EA killing CFM. We've seen other sports games do that. MLB The Show, which is my favorite sports game, killed online franchise. Now, they probably have the numbers to support that, but EA, they don't seem to care about the CFM, right? I mean, we had the Fix Madden franchise or whatever the hashtag that finally got their attention. But how many years in a row did we blip? 2? How many years has so and such been broken? They do not care. How much of their tweets and all that go into MUT? That's their moneymaker. And at the end of the day, it's a publicly traded company, so they're going to do what makes the stockholders happy and what makes money. And if that's cutting CFM and cutting staff and putting those people on MUT, that's a real possibility, and I think that's my biggest fear.
Yeah, I don't know that it'll ever happen. I think I know with the show that franchise was fine. It was probably better than people give it credit for. But yeah, I think you're right. They probably, I don't know anybody that played franchise in the show. And, obviously this is a CFM league, so, I'm a little bit biased here, but you go on YouTube and you watch videos and most of them are people playing in a league. either fooling around or playing with their friends or whatever. And yeah, some of it's MUT, but a lot of what you see is franchise in the YouTube or in the Twitch setting, and I think that's really critical to continuing the growth of Madden's player base. And I don't think they would, maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I don't think they would be silly enough to get rid of something that big for their fan base. But yeah, I mean they've made stupid decisions before, but you're right. I mean they just totally neglect CFM. Did they touch it at all for like 3 or 4 years up until 2020? I really don't think so.
I don't think so either. I feel like we're just playing the same thing over and over.
Really, and I wish, and they'll never do this because it would take too much time, and they'd probably have to skip a year, and they'll never do it because you said like they're a publicly traded company. They'd take a huge stock hit or whatever. They just need to rebuild the game from scratch. They've been building on the same game, as far as my understanding, I mean, pretty much forever. I know they made the jump to next gen, but they pretty much just brought over the old gen version and made a couple tweaks. And that results in the same bugs that you've seen 5 years ago that still pop up in this game. I mean, every once in a while, still, you'll get a guy that falls down and then just nobody touches him, even though he's been tackled. And then he just gets up and runs for 30 more yards. That's been a bug for years, and it's so far in the code that they won't go fix it. And actually, a couple years ago, it might have been last year or the year before, whenever they changed the interface on the main franchise screen, and it went away from that like cinematic coach scene to what it is now and more like a straightforward menu. I had my game glitch where I saw my head coach sitting in his office. It wasn't even supposed to be in the game, but it's still back there in the files. And when my game glitched, it brought that up instead of the main menu.
Yeah, so, I think you hit the nail on the head. And to give them some sort of credit, I think it's tough for them to fix a lot of these issues. One, on this engine, and two, in the short amount of time they have to release the game. You think it's a year, but you have to realize they need to have the game finished by a certain time. The discs made, the discs shipped. I'm sure the cutoff is a lot quicker than we think. What I would love to see, like you said, is don't put out a new Madden next year. Release a roster update once the draft and all the off-season moves take place in the current Madden. Give us the updated rosters if we want them, and take a year off and rebuild this game from the ground up. Give yourself a year and a half, 2 years worth of development. But again, like you also said, it's a publicly traded company. No one holding their stock is going to think, that's a fantastic idea, because they don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about your coach's office. They don't care about your blips. They care about the money that the stock is making them, and Madden not releasing is not good for them. So that's where we are.
I think the only chance of a compromise on that issue that anyone could possibly come up with is, they release they discount the game by 50%, like, I don't know, after the Super Bowl or something. They say they're not going to release the next game next year, but it's going to come out in 2 years. And then they charge like $20 for a roster update at the start of next season. Like, I'd be okay paying that because I'm not paying for a shitty new game. I'm paying for a shitty game that I already have, just with updated rosters, which is pretty much what you pay full price for anyway.
Yeah, that or some people start buying a different game, and we just don't have that choice right now. Competition would certainly, I'm sure, fix not all of, but a majority of our issues, either with Madden or the other game would not have the issues that Madden has. Something would have to give, right?
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get a true competitor, but I think we're not too far off from getting a few smaller companies putting out games that maybe get a surprising amount of players that might threaten EA just a little bit, but we'll see. What scares me in the SML is how bad the NFC might actually be. And it hurts to say this because we're both NFC guys. but the AFC is so much better. Like, I know we said after the draft that the AFC was the better conference, and I probably agreed with this statement at the time too. But this season in particular, the NFC just is not looking great. You got guys that are just disappointing. Straw Blacks we expected to be like, he lost the NBT Bowl, so he wasn't the NBT. But, the next big thing, we expected that out of him. And yeah, he went to the Super Bowl last year. But this season, he's just kind of like floating along. He's 9-4. I kind of expected to see a little bit more dominance out of him. I think really right now Bomber might be the only good player in the NFC, and I don't know that Bomber is good enough now to beat one of the top 3 or 4 teams out of the AFC in the Super Bowl. You got guys that probably shouldn't be competing for the playoffs, actually like really close there. You've got Colton, who's 6-7, only two spots out of the playoffs. You got Biz, who is historically a way below 500 player at 7-4-1 right now in the playoffs as the 5 seed. And you've got other guys that are just disappointing. Dom, AJ. Hell, I'll throw you in there too, because you're normally like a 13-win team and you're sitting here at 7-6. Even like you go further down the list, you got Paulie, 3-9, and yeah, I know he's tanking. But he's at 3-9, and he's behind Coop in his division. Like, what is happening in the NFC? I fear for the NFC for the remainder of this cycle because I don't know if anybody is going to be able to turn it around.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, right? I think, one, the NFC is not consistent. We saw Doink just absolutely obliterate QP, who... that's a pretty signature win for Doink and for the NFC, right? But he's just not consistent. He got obliterated by Dump earlier that same day. Straw Blacks is a really good player, but he's got the Rams. He is literally being kept alive by Aaron Donald. He is so dominant and so good that he allows. He just throws my guards on the ground. Literally throws them on the ground. Sacks or causes pressures. And so his team just isn't any good. But if he had the Eagles or the Niners, I think we'd be looking at Straw as a perennial contender, and he would be our hero of the NFC. And let's not forget, he did give Prime a ride for his money, although he should have thrown 3 picks on the first 3 plays of that Super Bowl. But he just doesn't have the team, but he's a really good player. Woods has the Eagles, and he's shown signs. He did play RD really, really close. And then there's Biz, who has the other best team in the NFC. But I think it's just a lack of consistency and a lack of good teams, especially at the quarterback position. All the good quarterbacks are in the AFC for the most part. But yeah, nobody in the NFC really scares me to play them. Maybe Woods, because I can't run against his team. But on the AFC, there's a lot of guys I just don't want to play.
Yeah, it's the AFC is, you can't even call it top heavy because the AFC East leaves a little bit to be desired. But even like let's look at the AFC West. Like Gutta is above 500. Rowan has been in Europe, so he's 0-12, but he's not really a 0-12 team. AFC North, they're Mike and NYT are winning games. 5, it's not that many, but it's not nothing.
But again, they have really good teams.
Yeah, right. I think, you're right. There's a lot of teams in the AFC that I just don't want to play. I don't look forward to getting my out-of-conference schedule every year. I turn around and I look at my NFC schedule and I'm like, okay, I think I could win most of these games. That doesn't mean I will, but that, I see the level of competition in the NFC be a lot lower, generally speaking. And that's not to say the NFC is without its bright spots. The NFC West could potentially be one of the best divisions in the league. Once Monty decides to turn it around and make the Cardinals into a good team, you could have 4 teams in the playoffs, theoretically.
Yeah, The NFC just needs to win one game. They just have to win the Super Bowl. And I mean, now obviously, if you had interconference playoffs, we would be in big trouble. Um, but at the end of the day, one team's going to come out of the AFC, one team's going to come out of the NFC, and it just takes that one game. What if it was Doink and Dump? I don't think that's going to happen. But what if it was, or excuse me, Doink and QP? Doink just absolutely flooded QP. That could be a Super Bowl. Again, it comes down to one game. Yes, the NFC is weaker teams, I think weaker players, but at the end of the day, it's one game and anybody can win one game. If it was a best of 7, obviously I think the AFC wins it going out, but it's not. It's the best of 1 and we'll see.
Yeah, my main thing is I think there should be probably 10 good teams in the AFC, in the NFC. And right now, I'm like struggling to get past 3, maybe 4, of teams that I really would trust in a playoff game. And even going that far, I'm not sure I trust a single person in the NFC to win a given playoff game. Anybody can beat anybody in this conference. And I don't think that's necessarily the case in the AFC. I would trust the AFC a lot more, in a random playoff game to win that game. I don't know. The NFC going forward, it scares me. But anyways, we're coming up here on a half hour, so let's pivot now and go to so as of the time of recording, we've got 3 games scheduled for Tuesday, Halloween. I think we may end up with more than that, but as of right now, we've got 3 games for tomorrow. One of them being the Cowboys and the Seahawks. For those of you that are slow, that's me and you. So let's give a prediction for that game, and then we'll hit the other 2 games. What do you see happening?
It's simple. You have the best rushing offense in the league. You have the running back that is far and away. You have the league MVP, in my opinion. So it's up to whether I can stop that or not, and that's going to decide the game. I am 24th in the league in rushing defense, so I don't see that happening, and I think you're going to win. My issue is, nothing about your team or your stats stand out. You're about middle of the pack in everything except for rushing. The problem is I'm not good at anything. I have one of the worst offenses in the league, and I have one of the worst defenses in the league. So unless I could figure something out, I like where my team's rounding out. I have Kenneth Walker back. That's a big help just for the big play potential. But, I can't stop Joe Blow, backup running back for whoever. McCaffrey was hurt, and the backup ran on me. I can't stop anybody. So I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say 28-14.
Okay, I think it's going to be a bit lower scoring. I don't know what my all-time record against you is. It wouldn't shock me if I've never beaten you. I think I have, but I don't know off the top of my head, and I could look it up, but I don't feel like doing that right now. But I think just based on the way these seasons are going, I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. And I got to give myself the win here, but I'm going to give it like maybe by 3 points. I'll say 2017. I got to pick myself when I have to choose.
Yeah, Tony Pollard's a machine. You know how to use him, and that's what's going to come down to.
Well, he's only got 120 yards in the last 2 games, but I just played maybe the 2 best rushing defenses in the league. So the Eagles, which are just not fair, and Dan, who's always really good, not to mention he's got Cam Hayward and TJ Watt.
Yeah, I'm not going to find inside stuff in the next 24 hours, so you're in good shape.
All right, so the other good game, actually we'll save that one. Let's go Jets-Patriots, which I think is it's a divisional matchup, but it's one that's a little more lopsided in terms of the standings. Jets and Patriots, they've played one other time this season. It was in week 2, and Double Rice No Beans came away with this one by 3 points, just 3 points. KJ is capable of pulling some major upsets. He dropped 63 points earlier this season. I saw that because I didn't see the game, but I saw that on the score sheet. I was like, oh my God, how did that happen? So So I don't know. I don't think it's really like going to be. I think it's going to be a good game. I think the Patriots will win, but I think it'll be a lot closer than we both expect it to be, or that most of the league
Yeah.
expects it to be.
It comes down to this. Does he start Aaron Rodgers or does he start Brian Bacon? Aaron Rodgers, 68% completions, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 93 rating if you round it. Brian Bacon has 4 touchdowns to 7 interceptions and a 72 rating. If he starts Aaron Rodgers, which he did in the first time they played and he lost by 3, Rodgers was 19 of 29, 211, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT, 95 rating, so about on par with his season stats. Hey, Aaron Rodgers can bail him out of a lot. When he played prime, he started Bacon and it was ugly and he got behind the 8 ball. So a lot of Rodgers' poor stats are him trying to catch ground against prime, which is just not where you want to be. If he starts Rodgers, KJ is a sneaky good defender. Quinnen Williams does a lot for him. He is all over the field making plays, a la Aaron Donald, who I just talked about. Even if he's not getting the sack numbers, he's putting the pressure on there. And also, KJ, I joked about him being a jawbreaker. He runs the clock down. You don't want to be in a close game with KJ because if he has the ball and you're down a score or 2, you might not have enough time to make those scores up because he just controls the ball so much. So I do think that Bean squeaks it out. He's playing really well. He just went through 6 games of pure torture against the best the league has to offer. Came out 3-3. I think he wins, but if Aaron Rodgers plays, watch out for the upset here.
I'm gonna throw one thing out there, and this is not me saying I think Brian Bacon's a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. He's got a cooler name. But a wrinkle to throw in there is that KJ is 2-2 when starting Brian Bacon, and he's 2 and I don't know what's that 5, 2-5, 2-6 when he's starting Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know. Maybe he plays a little bit better on the other side of the ball or running the ball when Brian Bacon starts. I haven't had time to go through and look at all the stats. Aaron Rodgers has better passing stats this season, but Brian Bacon wins games. So I don't know. I think that's a little bit something to think about in that game too. Anyways, moving on. And final game for Halloween will be Bears and Jaguars, which is also a little bit lopsided on the score sheet. But DW is in his first full season back, and he's won 4 of the last 5. I think it'll be, including over RD. So I think it'll be a good game. Bomber has been struggling a little bit lately, but he is back in the win column 3 out of the last 4 weeks. He's taken 3 losses to, pretty decent teams. And I will say that Bomber wins this one in a blowout. And I think it'll be 30-13.
Yeah, this is another one of those games where I think it just depends on how it starts. Kind of like when you play KJ, if you let him hang around, he gets dangerous. If you get a big lead, you pretty much know he's not coming back, right? He's going to make the mistakes. DW, this Jags team is really good, first off. They have everything you want. And then he's playing really good defense. He's top 5 in everything except for points allowed, which is probably based off of turnovers on the offensive side. I would guess. I don't watch all the games, but he's 4th in yards allowed, he's 5th in passing yards allowed, and he's 5th in rushing yards allowed. It's a really good defense with a lot of really good players, and DW runs a lot of the same scheme that he always has, and he's perfected it. We have a DW blitz for a reason. And Bomber can be shaky at times. He's had a close game against Coop. He had a close game against Paulie. Now I know those are division games and everything, but this team is good. It is going to be really good because of some dev hits and some drafts that he hit on, but it's not quite really good yet. And Fields still misses throws. The defense still doesn't have a whole lot of like super studs that just are going to take over a game. Christian Wilkins is really solid up the middle, but no abilities. Jermaine Johnson's good. But there's a chance here for DW if he just plays his game and stays in it early and puts the pressure on Bomber. But I agree. I've got the Bears here, and I'm gonna go 34-23. I said all of that, and I still think it's a 2-score win for the Bears.
Look, DW's capable of winning some games. I think he might be a little bit overmatched in this one. And I think Bomber's going to kind of use this as a get-right game. Yeah, he just played the Titans. Yeah, he just beat them by 10-plus points. But he's got Strawberries coming up next week. I think the Jaguars would be a really good place to hit the ground running and get prepared for that game.
Yeah, that could be a game for the 1 seed too. So yes, definitely something he needs to keep his eye on, but not look too far ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't overlook DW, and in this day and age in the SML, anybody can beat anybody, and I've never meant that more than I mean it this season, because it really seems that way. There's no undefeated teams. No team even has one loss. And the only team without a win was in Europe for like 3 weeks. Everybody else in the league has at least 2 wins. I can't remember last time everybody had lost at least 2 games and won at least 2 games. I don't know if that's ever happened, but it's any given Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
Yep, totally agree.
All right, guys. So I think that's about going to do it for this Halloween edition. Stay safe tonight. Have fun. Go take kids trick-or-treating or get drunk at home. I don't care what you do. But stay safe, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Happy Halloween.